being a brand manager at MAG is hard. Your job as a brand manager is to be strategic and a good client relations manager, right? So those are the two jobs of a brand manager at My Amazon Guy. Be strategic. So on our call, you strategically identified this main image needs to be improved. That's strategic. You are trying to understand the system and how to navigate client constraints and concerns. That's strategic. Do more of that. And then in terms of client relations, we also covered that as well. Trying to navigate the quirks and the personality traits of a client. And sometimes they're hard to work with. Sometimes they're crazy. Sometimes they're a-holes. It's hard to know sometimes. But your job is to try and retain them without going insane. Now, if you have a client that you just find vile or would make you want to quit your job, before that happens, you must speak up. Tell your manager and prevent that from happening. That would be the worst thing that happens to MAG is that you take abuse. Don't do that. But if the client is just quirky, you just have to work around them. One person's an introvert, send that dude emails. The other person's an extrovert, give that person calls. Navigate that from a strategic client management side. So those are the two main things that your role is in charge of. So going to some checklist things that you should do as a brand manager. Come to meetings prepared, right? So have notes going into your meetings with clients. Now the project manager can help that, but you from a strategy standpoint, project manager is only going to do task, right? You from a brand manager standpoint, know what's the main goal of each meeting. Make sure that's covered and written out ahead of time. Zero unread inbox. Keeping your inbox completely clean will prevent a challenge with a client who emails us and we don't respond to them for 8 business hours and then they get upset, right? So you need to make sure you respond within 4 business hours to prevent that. And from my experience, if you do that, nobody will ever complain you don't respond fast enough. So that's why the zero unread inbox is important. Don't ever apologize for delays. Just say thank you for your patience. This one's a little unusual, throws people off a tiny bit, but it's psychological, right? If you apologize, get angrier. If you just say thank you, it lightens the mood. Always record meetings, right? This is to protect you. This is to CYA. And this also helps, if a client said, oh, you never brought this up. And you're like, well, actually on 3/7 at 3:13 p.m. in the afternoon, you can clearly see here, I did bring it up and you approved it. That can be very helpful and it can de-escalate issues. Pitch strategy regularly using the BM playbook, the brand manager playbook. So we have a playbook that has 50 plus ways to grow sales. Master it, memorize it, go through it every week. There should never be a week where you don't review the playbook because it's like you're on a soccer team right now and play that's being run and you go to practice, you run the play, and then you go to the real game and you run the play again. But then between practice and the game, what do? You review the playbook. Same thing. We are a sports team. You always review the playbook. Know the client milestones and whether we are hitting them. If you know you got to grow that client to $15,000 a month, make sure you do. Tell the client what our progress is. How is the brand doing? Is it going well? Is it not going well? Admit the truth. If it's not going well, tell them how you're going to turn it around. If it's not going well and you can't turn it around, tell them that, right? Like, hey, it's not going well. Here's some of the things I thought we could try and do, and we're still not doing well. So here's what we're going to do about that. You go to your manager, you bring them in. If they say it's unwinnable, you tell the client, this may be unwinnable. We'll take your money as long as you want to give it to us, but we may never succeed. Are you okay with that, brand, Mr. Client Manager? Talk about milestones on the meeting. What is MAG doing to achieve them? Report abusive clients. So we've kind of touched a little bit on this. That one client you're dealing with could have some psychological things going on that we don't know. We're not clinicians. There could be all kinds of things going on there we don't know. Do your best work for your best and largest clients. When you're first starting out, do your best work for everybody. You're just training. But as time goes on, you have to pick and choose. Update Time Doctor to reflect your current client and who you're working on. So the reason why accurate reporting is important is because if you spent 30 hours on one brand and only 10 hours on the other 7 brands you're managing, we need to know that. Delegate to elevate. You're going to get a team of 8 people underneath you at some point. You have to delegate. You have to become a master at delegating, and you'll utilize a project manager to touch things and tactically, come and go. Know the MAG core values and live them daily. There's a bunch of SOPs and things we've mentioned. There's softwares to get familiar with, all kinds of best practices. Being a brand manager at MAG is hard, let's be clear, and will be the hardest job you've ever had. Most likely, right? Like that's what I typically hear from people. They also say simultaneously, but it's also the most rewarding job they've ever had. They also say things like, I've learned more here than I have in my past 7 years of working somewhere else. I usually hear things like that. So there's a nice trade-off. It's difficult, but it's worth it.